What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Welcome back to Top Bins, the show, bringing you all the action from England and Italy, Premier League, and Serie A. I am your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, a changed man.
What do you mean by changed? I mean,
you're no longer in your 20s, brother. I don't know what to tell you. You're no
longer
longer 20-something.
Yeah, I used to be a used to. That's what they say nowadays, right? I don't feel any different. My beard's a little longer. I got a few more gray hairs, but still trucking along.
I was gonna say you look terrible, but all right.
Wow. All right.
No, you're aging. You're aging like a fine wine, Dom. Just
give me the right moment. I'm gonna get my digs in. I'm telling you right now. Just give me the right moment. I'm gonna pounce like a jungle cat. All right.
It's so funny you mentioned that because I was explaining to my wife the magic of Ray Hudson the other day, and trying to explain to her, and had to pull up clips of him commentating on games to describe. There's really no way to describe without just showing the examples themselves.
He's magisterial.
That's exactly what I queued up for her. Quick as a bee's blink. That's one of my favorite ones. It's been a bit since we chatted here on the waves as it was, but so in that time, some things have happened. Liverpool were cheated out of a game, super cool, very nice. Then they were cheated out of a red card again this weekend against Brighton, very cool, very nice. Refereeing is just going really well, really everywhere you look. The refereeing it's all really good stuff. Had more drama in the Arsenal-Manchester City game over the weekend, which is where we will start, because we talked about coming into the season that if Arsenal want to be title challengers, they're going to have to beat Manchester City. That was obviously the big difference in their title challenge last season, their inability to do so, and their really inability to do so under Mikel Arteta since he's come to Arsenal, right? They've just not been able to really beat Manchester City. They do it this past weekend in a pretty impressive performance, I thought. Manchester City, though, obviously struggling. They don't have Rodri. He's still in suspension from that red card. I think people have sort of forgotten that De Bruyne is still out of this team. Erling Haaland has really struggled the last few weeks, and I think that's a symptom of the fact that they've dealt with some injuries, and they're in a little bit of flux right now. But for Arsenal, it's a great early season result, especially going into the international break. I think it gives you a great boost of confidence. They were dealing with some injuries coming in this game too. There was a doubt whether Bukayo Saka was going to be able to play or not, and he was. Martinelli, I think, was also struggling with something coming into the game, but all around, really key victory. You get a late winner. Ironically, it makes it so Spurs go into the international break top of the table. So they set their crosstown rivals up pretty nicely. But yeah, altogether, a really strong performance from Arsenal. It is the result that we've been waiting for in regards to them, again, being more legitimate title challengers for the last year and a half now.
I loved seeing the meme where it's like Martinelli when Arsenal needs a late game winner, and it's the picture of Jorginho holding up Pele, and they put Martinelli's face on Pele. So I thought that was hilarious. But, Martinelli coming to save Arsenal again. What I find most interesting about this is, a lot of the rhetoric around Arsenal this year has been very hyper-focused on, they're not playing up to par. This isn't the same Arsenal. This isn't, there's a lot of questions going all around them. But they have an identical record to Tottenham. They've only scored 2 goals less. They've also only allowed 2 goals less. So they have the same goal differential, and they're tied on points. And, Tottenham has been given all these praises so far this year about how good they're playing and this and that. And, granted, they're not playing in Europe this year, so that means they finished outside, the top 6. And the fact that they are top of the table is something to be celebrated, and it is something that, should be commended for them. But I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on Arsenal. In my opinion, they bolstered their squad and they're stronger than they were last year. They just need to continue to be consistent. And I think getting a win against City, late game winner, is a great momentum builder. It's a great confidence builder as a team, especially against the one team that kind of kept you from achieving your goal last year, which was winning the league. So I think this is a very positive result for Arsenal, no matter what it does. So what if it puts Spurs up at the top of the league? The North London derby, the rematch, since we've already had the one, it will be a very, very entertaining and probably extremely high stakes outing. But yeah, I think this is a good thing. As an Arsenal fan, I have seen a lot of people saying this online. I would be rather concerned with Bukayo Saka's usage. A lot of people are using the Pedri picture from when he was like with Spain, and he has these huge dark circles under his eyes because he's played like almost a year straight with no breaks, and Saka's kind of getting in that same boat right now. I saw something, I forget the statistic, but it was a bunch of players and the minutes they logged before age 24. I don't know if you saw this graphic.
I haven't seen the exact graphic, but it is a real concern in players, in young players, especially the last few years, players have always had a lot of games to play, but it's been really condensed in part because of the COVID break, right? And then that turns into the Winter World Cup last year. You have the Euros this summer. You have European qualifications during this international break. It's not even like international friendlies where, lower stakes. And now you have the Nations League, adds more competitive game. It's really talking about a packed schedule. And next year we'll have the expanded Champions League format, which is going to add games on to the kind of opening stages of the Champions League. So like everywhere you look, there's tons of players just playing more and more minutes. And you do have to wonder, like you said, like with Saka and how much he gets played, because a player of that talent, of that quality, you obviously have to pick him if you're Arteta. There's no way that when he's healthy and available that you're in especially a game like this. But yeah, it is something to monitor and to focus on as we go forward. For Manchester City, this is the first time that they've lost 2 games in a row in the Premier League in almost 5 years. That should just tell you everything about how Pep's team has worked over the last few seasons and just how dominant they've been. This is not a knockout punch for them. I think people are going to be quick to write that headline. I think we should all remember that last fall, that Manchester City were not like hugely impressive, right? And that Erling Haaland looked very good, but the results were still a little mixed. They really hit their stride and ended up winning a treble last year.
Yeah.
And we've seen this with Manchester City over the years that early in the season, we've seen them, have some turbulence and turn it on when it matters. This is still a team that, come March, I'm still pretty concerned about if I'm Arsenal, if I'm Spurs, Liverpool, even if Liverpool are able to hang around in a title race as well. Yeah. So I think that's all good. And if I'm a City fan, I'm not totally worried. Again, you do this without Rodri. Rodri's been a huge part of their success, especially last season. I think they've lost 3 of the 4 games that they've played without him this year, and they've lost 5 of 16 that he has not played, which tells you that is enough with a team like Manchester City, where they're not a team that's going to lose you typically more than 5 or 6 games in a season across all competitions. When you have 5 losses out of 16 games without a certain player, he really is a crucial part to their system. They don't have sort of a like for like replacement. Not many teams would, but they really don't have someone of that quality. I think he is very important. And again, you can't forget Kevin De Bruyne has been out for 2 months now, and it's not exactly clear when we'll be getting him back. Could be another 2 months. He fully tore that hamstring, had to get surgery. So for City, it's not an ideal result, but I think, again, you back yourself. This team has been in this position so many times. I think Erling Haaland will figure it out. It is concerning that he's getting marked out of games, didn't have a shot at all. City only had 4 shots in this game. That's where I'd be concerned, is that if teams are able to maybe limit that creativity from you and limit those amount of chances that you can get. Haaland is a good enough player that he really only needs a half chance, but if he's not getting any kind of volume, that is where I'd be worried about going forward.
Well, I know a lot of people have been asking the question, is he a ghost in big games? It seems like people are calling him a stat patter against the small, weaker clubs. So I don't know how much you buy into that, but
zero. I buy into that zero amounts. His Champions League goal scoring record speaks for itself.
Yeah. Listen, you mentioned Rodri as well. As the resident head of memes, the meme department for us, I just gave myself that position right now.
Yeah, that's all yours.
When you talked about Rodri, being out for a little bit, it was a tweet, and it said Pep going to get Rodri and telling him he's playing in the next game, and it's that clip from Scared Straight where the kid's like asleep in the cell and he's like screaming in the bed.
Yeah, that's.
Come on, get in. We need you.
I mean, it's really been the first time Rodri's ever faced any like real consequence for the way that he acts, because he's a guy that, And by the way, I just love that early in the season refs, and this happens all the time across all sports. But where there's a new rule change, they're really strict about it for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then they just don't call it anymore. The players asking for yellows for other players, that was like an immediate yellow card. When we were talking about why there's so many red cards in the Premier League, so far this season, and why there's such a higher volume, we were pointing at that as a potential, one of the reasons why, not the only reason, but a potential cause. Saw that quite a few games over the weekend, especially in this Arsenal-Manchester City game, saw that a lot. And I love the consistency of this sport, that 3 weeks ago, you're getting a yellow card for that, potentially even a second yellow, technically, or the first that leads to a soft yellow. Like, just love that that's not called anymore. I thought it was dumb to begin with. I was so against it because it's such a subjective thing. I hate introducing kind of like borderline stuff like that. That's going to it exists just to cause controversy. Mm-hmm. And here we are again. Just it's so stupid.
Yeah. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Yeah. Have Chelsea turned it around? Well, hear me out. They won 3 straight games. Now they did. It was Burnley
in all competitions.
Okay.
You gotta give
that's
the caveat.
better than what Dom. They had won 6 games in the last calendar year. All right, let's.
They scored 1 goal all of September.
Right, and that's not the first time that they've had 1 goal in a month in the last year as well. So I'm just saying, yes, it was Burnley. I totally understand that. And the wins against teams have not been hugely impressive. I'm not pretending like that. But if you look, their XG numbers have been okay to start the year. This has been a team that has been able to create chances and has maybe just been a team that's been a little unlucky at times. They've looked bad too, though, I should say. It's not just like, wow, they look great. I don't know what's happened to them. They've looked bad, and they've been uninspiring. But they have created chances. They've just not been able to get any sort of like clinical finishing on the end of them. I think, again, if you're a Chelsea fan, you're looking at this result, you're looking at these performances of the last few games and think this could be where our season starts to turn a little bit. It's not going to be a great year. I think at best they're competing for like 7th, 8th, and maybe hope for something, in one of the cups, right? Like they're clearly not a team that's going to be in the Champions League next season, but I do think this could be a turning point for them. Pochettino is still like a mystery to me. He's just a man that I find it very hard to understand. But I don't know. I think there's something there. I think there's something there for Chelsea.
I find it funny because I see a lot of Chelsea fans. They talk about, oh, we're back. We're back. This is our year. We're coming for it. Europe, here we come. I think, was it you on the show that said it's crazy because Chelsea can just pull out a new created character and put them in their starting lineup. Like, you've never seen this guy. You don't know what club he came from. It's just, I don't know. I really, if I'm the owner of the club, I'm hoping that they get some sort of minor success this year because, as we've said on past episodes, these contracts are going to come to bite them in the ass later on down the road, and they're not going to be able to get out of them, and they're going to be stuck with the same players, and they're not going to make any type of progress. So if they can't save themselves now, it's not looking good, bruv. It's really not. Like, I don't know. Like, they've got a lot more to prove to me in order to let me know that they need to be taken serious again. at least in the league, because
would you say Brighton's a good team?
Yes, Brighton is a good team.
They beat Brighton in the EFL Cup, right?
Sick.
Fulham we expect to regress this year, right? But like a decent mid-table team in the Premier League, right? They're not going to get relegated. They're a pretty good side. They beat them in the league 2-0. And again, they do what a good team should do and beat a newly promoted side 4-1. I just think it's a good run of results. I think if we look at Chelsea and they finish, say, again, 7th this season, I think we'll look maybe at this October run as a potential turning point for them. I think we could just like put a pin here. I'm not saying they're back. I'm not saying Pochettino's a genius and everything's fine. I'm just saying it looked very bad to start the year. Like legitimately could have been in relegation discussion. I think they're moving away from that, and the underlying numbers supported that they were, again, not a top 4 team necessarily, but they were not a team that was going to be kind of around 15th in the Premier League. That they are a little better than that. I think we're starting to see them make that turn.
Brighton has bigger things to worry about this season. They have the league to worry about, and they have European competition to worry about.
Yeah, unironically, yes, you're right. Like I'm not disagreeing with you whatsoever, but they're still a good team.
Oh, I know you won't.
Coach.
Yeah. Yes, this is true. De Zerbi, man of the people.
Love him, honestly. Just one of my favorites, truly. Speaking of man of the people, Scott McTominay. Manchester United fans couldn't wait to see the back of this guy in the summer. It has to be a conflicting position because I try and understand the psyche of Manchester United fans and what they want or don't want or who they're blaming for their poor performances. If it's the owners, I don't know if it's the owner's fault this time. I never know. I never know.
Storm the field, you know?
It's always something. It is hilarious to me that McTominay puts together just the absolute dumbest 2 goals in stoppage time to beat Brentford, who were much better for most of this game and really should have won, and just find a way to collapse. And we'll probably talk about Brentford and how concerned we should be. Again, not relegation-wise, but going to be far off the pace from where they were last season. Scott McTominay gets 2 goals in stoppage time to get a come-from-behind win. I say this truly not in my hot take voice, unironically. I think saves Erik ten Hag's job. I think if they lose at home to Brentford going into the national break and they're at the position that they would have been in the league, I think you would have heard a lot about Ten Hag losing his spot here because there's been no good positive news out of Manchester United this entire season. They would have been on 9 points. That would have been good for 14th in the Premier League, just 1 point above Wolves, if they had lost that game, which they're on track to do. I don't know that is a recoverable position for Ten Hag. Well, I think he has McTominay to thank for that.
I mean, I saw reports coming out today that there's a lot of players that don't believe in Ten Hag after they saw how he treated Ronaldo in the club, and Sancho, who they say has a great mindset and a good personality and works just as hard, if not harder, than most people on the squad. And they're seeing how he's being treated by the club and by Ten Hag. I mean, that doesn't bode well when you don't have a hold of the locker room and a lot of the players don't believe in you. Even with this win, it's going to be tough for them. Like if this McSauce masterclass, you like the alliteration there, right? If that saves his job, the bar is set very low at Manchester United right now.
Okay, well they've lost their first 2 Champions League games. It's not even just about.
Oh yeah.
I think it would have been a really tough position to come back from, where you've lost your opening 2 Champions League games. You've been bad in the league, and you dropped to Brentford. I think that would have been really hard for them. I
just think that, like, if this saves his job, he's got to do so much damage control within the locker room, because he's still 3 months away from a transfer window. And if the players aren't believing in him and they're seeing how he's, ostracizing and alienating players and, a club legend at first, and then a marquee signing that just has not seemed to get along well with the club, there's
the Ronaldo
obviously
stuff,
questions.
I think
I'm talking about both.
Right.
Like,
Ronaldo stuff was totally justified, though, because he was lazy and was not like working within the system and
Oh, yeah.
refused to press. And I have no issue with that whatsoever. With the Sancho stuff, we won't ever really know like what's going on there. It's honestly very hard for us to say because like we have no clue. And I don't even mean just me and you to say, like, just in general, anyone outside of that situation has no clue what's going on between him and Jadon Sancho. I'm just saying this would have been the worst start through 8 games in the Premier League for Manchester United had they lost this game. And it's 3 points is really not that much better, but I'm just saying I think it's been a really, really bad start to the season. I think they've been in a really bad spot, not even just on the field performances, but all the off-field stuff that has occurred. Just think of all that has happened in the last like month and a half with Manchester United and the controversies, the Greenwood reinstatement, and then they rolled that back, and the Jadon Sancho situation, the Antony situation, like everywhere you turn. Andre Onana has looked awful. I mean, just truly, truly awful. And that's, one of their like marquee signings of the summer. And you thought you have your goalkeeper situation sorted out now. Terrible. Mario Cardi had the worst chip I've ever seen in my life against him. It was the most pathetic performance I've ever seen from a keeper. Like, I have genuine seen like U8 keepers do better. I don't know what's up with him. I think he's lost his confidence, which is a huge concern because shot stopping he was not bad at shot stopping, right? But he was not De Gea where it's like he can be elite at that position. That has never been his strongest quality. It has been his ball playing. And if he's going to lose his confidence and not be able to handle that aspect, red flag, red alarm, whatever you want to say. That's really worrying.
When Olivier Giroud has more clean sheets than you, I think there's a
one of the best keepers of all time. There. So I think I've seen all I needed to see. I've seen all that I've needed to see, and I feel confident in saying that he's one of the best keepers I've ever seen. Let's go to Italy, shall we? Where speaking of managers losing their job, Rudy Garcia potentially out at Napoli. This has been a story developing over the last week. I did not love them hiring Garcia to begin with. He's not a manager that I held in very high esteem to begin with. And it seems like they're interested in parting ways. The problem is that they wanted Antonio Conte, which is a problem for 2 reasons. One, I don't know that Conte has the juice anymore. I think he might have lost a little bit of it. And 2, Antonio Conte doesn't seem interested in going to Naples, which is important if you're trying to hire someone. You want them to also be interested in working at whatever company or business it is that you run. So they're in a little bit of a weird position. I do think some of the doom and gloom with Napoli is a little overrated. It has not been a great start to the season, but I don't know. The Serie A, as we've seen over the last few seasons, is not. It's a league where you can make a run and get yourself back in a position. Obviously, the 2 at the top, both Milan clubs, have been very good to start the year, but yeah, they're 7 points off top. That's not great. Going into the second international break. I'm not trying to spin this as this is actually a good thing, but I don't think it's a position that you can't possibly recover from. They're in a challenging Champions League group. I think they'll end up making it out of there, but I didn't think Rudy Garcia was the man to start it from, and I don't know how this ends. It seems like it's going to be a money issue because if they fire him, they still have to pay him out for the rest of the year. Who knows?
Listen, it's one of the worst starts to a title defense that I've seen in a long time. I mean, normally, in Serie A, you do see a little slump the next season from the team that won the league the year before, and this is kind of bad. This is kind of concerning. What's also even more concerning is when the owner of the club comes out and says, "My manager doesn't know Italian football anymore." That is crazy. He calls shots right away. I don't think that Conte is coming, though. It's going to be a very, very interesting thing. He said that he's not. But
he said that he's not coming and that he's going to just take some time and whatever. I think he has another gallbladder surgery or something. Who knows?
He's going to end up in Saudi Arabia.
I don't think that. I think Antonio Conte is way too competitive for that. He's a psycho. He's honestly there's something. I say this not even as a bit. I think there's something wrong with Antonio Conte. I think he's just kind of a little bit unhinged in a good way.
That's hilarious.
But He doesn't seem interested in coming to Napoli, and he said he's just gonna. He said, "I'm linked with important clubs, but as of now, my plan remains to wait and enjoy my family." There you go. Said that on his Instagram too, straight from the mouth of Babes, or Antonio Conte, who beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
He's trying to take Spalletti's job.
I don't think he's trying to do that. Spalletti might be also out of a job. Who knows? If Italy find themselves not qualifying for the Euros, I think. By the way, Italy and Turkey,
extremely concerning.
2032 Euros.
Yes.
Pretty nice. Dom, I think we're just gonna have to take the show on the road.
2032, 9
we're still
years.
Doing this podcast in 9 years. I know that we'll still be friends in 9 years. I know that for sure.
Might still. What? I think that's more of a definite.
I said we'll still be doing the podcast. I think what I meant to say is we'll still be friends.
Yes.
I don't know that we'll 100% be doing this podcast still. I'm saying
we'll
right now.
We'll evolve into what the popular medium is.
Right. We'll be on the fake AI on Meta where we're like pretending to be, I don't know, George Clooney and Robert Downey Jr. talking to each other about soccer. I don't know. We're going to Italy in 2032. That's what I know. That's exciting though. It's exciting to have. And I think too for SerieA in a very real way, this could lead to stadium improvements. This is obviously a big focus in Italian football over the last 10, 15 years has been not just ownership of stadiums, but the quality of those stadiums, their infrastructure, how modern or not modern they are, how suitable they are for sort of like the more modern fan experience. So I do think this is a good thing. I do think this could see, you could see investment in those systems, which I think a lot of Italians have wanted to see. And I think it's altogether a really cool thing. Italy and Turkey's a strange joint bid. I will say that. Yeah. It's too. They're not particularly close either. I mean, they're close-ish, but not very close. It's not like Italy and Greece, right? Where it's like that makes sense. Or Italy. Italy and France, I don't think would ever agree on anything besides croissants being good. But Italy-France joint bid would make sense, right? Italy, Switzerland, you keep it all very, very tight knit. But excited.
How do you think I'm assuming Turkey will get a game in Turkey. So, what do you think the atmosphere will be like? Flares?
Oh, more flares than you can imagine. I think, however many flares you're imagining, it's probably 3 or 4 times more. Honestly.
We're gonna see a repeat of the or a second coming of the Milan derby, and the iconic picture of Materazzi and Rui Costa.
Definitely one of the. Yeah, I think that is one of the most iconic, certainly of like our generation. I think of this century so far. I'm sure I'm going to think of other I think the only other iconic thing that comes to mind also involves Materazzi and it's Zidane headbutting. Yeah. I think I remember that more for like the video, but the still image of that I think evokes the same kind of thing. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other really iconic pictures. I guess now like Messi holding the World Cup would probably be there's not one image of him holding it that is necessarily burned into my mind, but that would obviously become like a pretty iconic picture. I know you don't like to hear this. Maybe Steven Gerrard holding the Champions League trophy after 2005, where he's doing the flex and the trophy. And I don't know. I think
about that Maldini hoisting it in 2007 kind of.
I first of all don't remember that. I seem to remember him just being a crybaby loser and just walking off and not talking to anyone after the 5 final. It's really bad sportsmanship, actually.
Ibra with a cigar overlooking the San Siro. Yeah, there it is. That's iconic.
I was going to say Nicola Pepe signing for Arsenal. I think that's the iconic image of the century.
Oh, God.
I think that's the most meaningful transfer that we've had.
Oh, man.
Dom, it's gonna get nice for you. Milan, back to the top of the table. We talked after the derby, right? And things seemed down for them. They didn't have and Champions League performances have still not been great. There's definitely some current concern for their group, but largely speaking, the results have turned around for them. And it really felt like that could put them into a little bit of a spiral, and we could see, it really felt like Inter were on a very big march towards a title, and it felt like they had really stole the momentum of the league away, but Milan have hung in and gotten good results, 4 in a row now, and I don't know. I never felt out on this Milan team. Coming into the season, I felt like Milan, Inter, Napoli were the 3 teams that I felt could win the Scudetto this year. I still feel that way. Napoli have, just by virtue of their results, fallen a little bit out of that race, and it's hard to say that with real conviction now. But everything I've seen from Milan and Inter so far this year has rung pretty true and kind of to my expectation. But Milan have turned it around, and I think that's a big story. I think it's just as big of a story that Inter have, I don't want to say have struggled a little bit. I just think, they started out so strong. They had only conceded 1 goal, after that Milan derby, and that was to that Milan side. So that was obviously not going to be sustainable over the course of the season. I still think they've looked largely very good. But yeah, it's all about the Milan clubs now, and I think this is the same conversation we'll be having for the rest of the season.
If you're thinking about it, Lautaro Martinez is largely the MVP of the league right now. It's kind of funny that Leao got Player of the Month over him, but that's only because EA Sports runs that vote, and all the people who want the better card in FIFA are going to vote for that player. So Rafael Leao won it.
Awesome. That's our system now. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's so sick, right? But within the league, I think that it says a lot when Milan's best player says he doesn't mind if he's benched because the team has so much quality throughout that it doesn't matter the team. They're gonna be in a good position to win. I think that they've spent their money in the transfer market very well. Pulisic is having a renaissance of a season. It was a great move to leave from Chelsea. I think he's one of the goal-scoring leaders on the team right now. It just seems like he always finds a way to get in, although in some games he does look invisible when he's not getting proper service or chances. But he does look like the better option at right wing right now for them. Guys like Reinders and Loftus-Cheek have contributed greatly, but Musa is having so much success right now. In my opinion, for Milan, he came out saying that he did not expect to get this many opportunities this quickly, and now he's hungry to keep working harder so that he can continue to be in the lineup. And I think he's been playing very well, both as a midfielder and like a right midfielder sort of. So, most of Milan is strong. The only thing that I have questions about is the right back situation. Calabria has looked very inconsistent. And, if it wasn't for him wearing the captain's armband, I feel like he would have been gone a long time ago. I'd rather see Florenzi in there. However, Florenzi always has, his fitness issues, his health issues. Can he stay healthy long enough throughout the season that Milan can find some consistent success? Because I do think he's just a better player. He's more experienced. He's been a better player. I don't always like Kalulu playing out there. I like having, 4 center backs to choose from, especially with the busy schedule that they play. So, not having left back depth kind of sucks too, but it is what it is. All that I know is that if Mike Maignan gets hurt, both Sportiello is a very solid goalkeeper. I'll tell you what, he was a reason why Milan got some of those like 1-0 wins or came back, because he made some very, very good saves. But like we said earlier, Olivier Giroud wearing Mike Magnan's jersey in net because they didn't have a backup. I love seeing it. Makes an amazing save to keep Milan in that 1-0 win. That was the Genoa game, correct? So that happened this past weekend. I think that being top of the table is truly deserved. I mean, they're sharing it alongside their cross city rivals, or I wouldn't even say cross city because they share the same stadium. But yeah, both teams are strong. Juventus has been, a fairly strong team this year. Napoli is it looks like it's another year of like some parity within the league. Although, like you said, Napoli is 7 points off. SerieA is a league that's very streaky, and low table teams always find a way to steal some points or get a win, and you can't ever take any game lightly. because next thing you know, you're going to be losing and dropping points. So I'm hoping that Milan stay consistent. I hope that they stay healthy. I can't wait to see Benacer back and healthy with the team because we still haven't even seen their main midfield lineup, which speculations say is supposed to be Reinders, Benacer, and Loftus-Cheek. But, I mean, with Musa coming into the fold and playing really well as well, it's going to make Pioli's decisions a little bit tougher. It's crazy to me, though, how when the team suffers, they love to blame the coach, but then it's all forgotten about when the team's winning. However, he's still not being praised.
You have just described the nature of all sports. It is always the coach's fault and whoever else's fault when it's going poorly, and then when it's going well, the praise is just not there for the people. It is a thankless job in a lot of ways.
Before we move on to Juventus, I do want to pose a question that I saw on Twitter, and I want to know your opinion. Could you consider Stefano Pioli one of the, let's say, top 5 Milan managers of all time?
No.
So
I think he would need to do more for a club of Milan's size to be top 5.
So what 5 are you putting?
Sacchi,
Of course.
Ancelotti.
Of course.
I would put, I would put Allegri over him, honestly. I think what Allegri did is probably better. Now, if you get another title and, you maybe, again, go deeper stages of the Champions League, we can chat. But I think Allegri, I'm sure there are other managers not. I just think top 5 sounds.
I think pulling Milan out of the banter era and going and winning a Scudetto after almost a decade of mediocrity and memes, like it's something. What he brought back to the club was stability.
Dom, I'm gonna hit you with Daniele Angeloni, the manager from 1906 to 1907. I'm just looking through to see who some of the best managers were. You've got Busini in the 50s.
I think Fabio Capello should be top 5.
Capello, maybe not necessarily for what he did with Milan, but just as his whole body of work.
Yeah, he's a product of the Berlusconi era, But
he had success and he was Sacchi to me is
Sacchi's number 1. Sacchi's number 1, Ancelotti's number 2, and then it's kind of gray area from there. That's where the arguments start to happen.
No.
That was prime banter era, man. We went through 3 legends off of that 07 team. You went from Inzaghi to Seedorf to Gattuso, and Gattuso had the best tenure out of all of them.
Okay, so Capello, by the way, 91-92 Serie A title, 92-93 Serie A title, Supercoppa, 93-94 Serie A title, Champions League, Supercoppa Italia.
Well, he also had
European Super Cup, Supercoppa Italia, 95-96 Serie A title. That
was also because Serie A opened up the slots for 3 foreign players, and they added a 3rd Dutch player. So they had Gullit, Van Basten, who was the best player in the world at the time.
That's still an elite run.
Oh, yeah, of course.
We're talking 4 titles. I knew Capello was good with Milan, but 4 out of 5.
It's incredible.
He's above. He's 100% above.
100%.
So maybe he's number 5.
Yeah, sneaks in there.
Maybe. All right, let's get to Juventus.
Don't bring up this 1904, 1905 nonsense.
Joke, Tom. You ever heard of one? You ever heard of a bit? I know you're an old man now, but you can't joke anymore.
All right, listen. Just because you turn 30 next year doesn't mean.
Don't know what you're talking about, Chief. I ain't making it.
Whoa.
It's a joke. Strictly parody.
It's a joke.
Juventus have somehow, and I don't know how, but have somehow, quietly too, in the top 4 race. For all that has happened, for all the disaster, for all the nonsense, for all the Paul Pogba testosterone test thing, which he's now said he's going to be testing all of his ointments and creams and everything he has in his house to make sure that there's some sort of potential contamination or something. Who knows? Between all of the now Fajoli being under investigation for illegal gambling, despite all of that, despite Allegri being a terrorist of football, despite those things, find themselves in 3rd position in Serie A.
I don't know.
And have looked, I'll be honest, not great. They've not been an enjoyable watch. They were rarely ever an enjoyable watch in the last 12, 13 years. Even though they were a very good team, they weren't always a team that really excited you. But here they are, resiliently, still somehow, and I mean, they were in the top 4 race last year. Obviously, the points deduction, made sure that it didn't matter ultimately really how they played. They were always going to be out of Europe no matter what. But I do think that it's still a good thing for Juventus, and I just think it's going to have to be something that we monitor and watch over the course of the rest of the season, because they're going to be hanging around in this top 4 race. I think they're still a good team. And you look around Italy too, we already talked about Napoli, how they've had a struggle to start the year. We expect obviously them to find their footing, but outside of Napoli, there's no team. I love Fiorentina. I don't want to call them pretenders, but I do think this is a team that has shown to be very good in 3-4 month stretches and then has cooled off. And I do worry that we're in one of those stretches and we're going to see the cool off, and we're not necessarily going to see them be a Champions League contending team. But Atalanta have really disappointed this year. They've really struggled for consistency. Roma, I would be interested in, but I just think that they had such a poor start, and Mourinho already there's conflict and speculation that he might be out of a job. So if you look around, there's not a lot of teams that you really look at and think are making up that ground for Juventus. I would say Napoli, the only one I feel any type of confidence about. But largely speaking, I think Juventus are there to stay in the top 4, and I think that would be a massive season for them to find themselves back in the Champions League. Obviously, this year with being away from Europe completely could benefit them. They do have Milan after the international break, which will be exciting. That's always a pretty good matchup. But yeah, so far this season, I think Juventus, I think they deserve a little bit of credit for it too. I think so many people had written them off, counted them out, and did not consider them to be a very good team anymore, and just sort of assumed that they might be out of the race. But here they are again, as they always are. They are the zombie team of Serie A, right? That they find their way into the top 4 race somehow. Dom had to step away and make a phone call. It is just me on the airwaves now. I'm going to give Dom 20 seconds to get back on the line before we wrap it up, because that is the end of our show. We got nothing else. But I don't know that if Dom has anything else to say, anything to add. I would remind you that you could obviously subscribe wherever you're hearing this right now. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can hit the subscribe button there at any time. Not just Top Bins, but any of our other podcasts go live, publish their podcasts. You can catch that there too. Give us a like. Always appreciate it. That is going to do it for this episode. We will be back next week. We'll be doing another fantasy draft like we did last season for the Premier League and Serie A. This is the a time of the year where I think there's been enough games that you can make some kind of judgment on how good, how bad some of these teams are, and make some kind of bets on the rest of the year. Just a nice little friendly competition that I dominated in last year totally and completely. To just see, again, you're selecting teams, and you will be tracking their performance throughout the year. So if you found that fun and exciting last year, we will be doing that again next week. Still giving Dom more time, but he's a busy man, and he's got lots of phone calls. But that is it. We're wrapping it up. We'll see you next week. Dom will hopefully not have to take a phone call in the middle of the pod next week, but we'll see you next time.